Man, oh man, the Chicago Bulls somehow managed to do it again, and again. Not winning games, but losing games against teams that they're obviously supposed to beat over and over and over again. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Bulls podcast. My name is Corey. It's becoming kind of difficult to do these podcast videos. You know, in the beginning of the season, the Bulls were winning, playing with great energy, things like that. And it was a joy to come on here every day and do this podcast and just, you know, and all of those good things. But now it's like, man, like, what's going on? You know, so feel free to chime in the comments, you guys. Let me know what you guys think is going on with this team. I'm at lunch right now, on my lunch break, and just seeing what the Bulls did tonight versus the worst team in the NBA. The New Orleans Pelicans come in with a record of 4 wins and 22 losses, and somehow they managed to beat the Chicago Bulls again. Now, let me give you guys just this little tidbit here. I know I'm pretty sure you guys already know this. Maybe you don't. So, the New Orleans Pelicans, they beat the Bulls tonight. Okay. I guess a positive thing you could say is that they didn't blow us out. They only won by, what is that? I think it was 4 points. Okay. So, an interesting tidbit about tonight. The New Orleans Pelicans, they have 5 wins on the season. 5 wins and 22 losses. 2 of those wins, you can almost basically say half of their wins. They only have 5 wins. You know, almost half of their wins have come against the Chicago Bulls, and that speaks volumes to this Chicago Bulls team. You know, when we were winning games in the beginning of the season, and like I always say, I know you can't win them all, you can't lose them all either, unless you're just super terrible or something, but you can't win them all. But in the beginning of the season, you know, it was really a joy, you know, to do these videos, to make these podcast videos about the Bulls winning and overachieving and all of those good things. But honestly, now, I mean, it's, you know, making the videos now, you know, I hate to come on here and just almost every video is just me shaking my head, you know, disappointed, wondering what's going on. But I think that's what a lot of Bulls fans out there are thinking. That's what we're feeling, you know, just keeping it real. Like, what's going on with this team? You know, we started the season off, obviously a great start, great team energy, great team chemistry, things like that. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. Maybe it's something happening in the locker room with the players. Maybe it's the coaching staff. Maybe it's the front office. I don't know. You know, all we know is what we see on the surface, you know, so who knows, you know. So, but like I keep saying, you know, there's 3 key factors in the Chicago Bulls' success this year, and they definitely failed at all 3 of those tonight. What are those 3 factors? I keep saying them in my videos. You can check my previous videos on here that I've made. I keep mentioning the same 3 key factors to the success of the Chicago Bulls this season: defense, winning games you're supposed to win, which is tonight versus New Orleans Pelicans, the worst team in the NBA. You know, and then defending home court. You know, they're playing in Chicago. I'm thinking that's somebody behind me beeping, but he's good. Sorry about that, you guys. But anyway, the third key factor, defending home court. When you're playing in Chicago at the United Center, you got the home crowd behind you. You know, I don't know what's going on with this team. You know, so based on what I've been seeing here, let me make sure I got enough time on my lunch break here. All right, I'm good to go. But based on what I've been seeing here, and based on how things have turned out in times past, I think that, and let me know what you guys think about this in the comments, what I'm about to say here. But I think that based on what we're seeing here from this Chicago Bulls team, okay, I think that there's obviously a change coming to this team. And don't get me wrong, like I said, you can't win them all, can't lose them all, stuff like that. But you don't want to overreact. You don't want to hit the panic button. You don't want to say, hey, let's blow it all up, fire all the coaches, trade all the players, get new ownership, get a new manager, get a new whatever. I'm not saying to take it there, but in times past, when things like this happen, where there's just unexplained non-production, I guess you want to call it, unexplained failure, and it's consistent. I mean, of course, you want to be fair, and you look at, okay, injuries. You look at, okay, did we just hit a rough patch in the road? You want to look at those things like that, because it can happen to anybody. It can happen to a championship team. It can happen to a fantastic team. It can happen to anybody in the NBA. Teams have bad games. Teams have bad stretches of games. It is what it is. But I don't know. I hope that this is just a bad stretch of games for the Bulls. But something is kind of telling me that it's not. I think it's something. I think that it may be something beyond that. So like I say, you guys chime in. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know what your perspective is. But this is my perspective here. Feel free to chime in and let me know what you guys think, because I think that a change is on the way. Whether that be via a trade, whether that be via a coaching change. I don't think it's going to be management. I highly doubt that. I would be really surprised at that if the Bulls make a move with Acme, our Arturas Karnichovis or Mark Eversley. I would be really surprised at that one, but you never know. And the Reinsdorfs aren't going anywhere, so I highly doubt it's them either. So I think that more than likely, sometime soon here, we're going to be seeing some type of trade, or we're going to be seeing a coaching change. Now, Billy Donovan, by no means he's not a terrible coach. Do I think that he could be better? I think so. And I'm not blaming this all on him. But what makes me think that a change is on the way is that I think that it's possible, and I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I think that it's possible that this team is due for a coaching change. I think that's what this possibly is. So, as I stated in a couple of videos ago, I forget which one it was. Maybe I should have looked into that before I made this video, right? But as I stated before in one of my previous videos, when you look at the history of the Chicago Bulls, okay, oftentimes when they have a coach like Billy Donovan, which I'm not saying that he's a bad coach, but when they have a coach like Billy Donovan, he seems to be and I may be wrong. All I know is what I see on the surface. Okay, I'm not there at every game. I'm not in the locker room, of course, and all that good stuff. I don't know what the inner workings are, but based on what I see on the surface, Billy Donovan seems to be a calm, cool, and collected head coach. Seems like he'll keep it real with you to a certain extent. Seems like he communicates well with his players. He seems like a kind of like a player's coach, But based on what we've seen with the Bulls, just throughout Bulls history, usually the Chicago Bulls, I don't know what it is. It's weird. I don't know. Maybe it's just a Chicago thing or something. I don't know what I'm about to say. But usually with the Chicago Bulls, we see our most success when we have a defensive-minded coach, or we have somebody that's like highly philosophical. They just come in with a whole different approach to the game that hasn't been seen before. Phil Jackson, okay? And then in regards to a defensive-minded coach, I think of Scott Skiles. And I'm not saying that we have to go out and get a Scott Skiles type coach, but I'm just saying for some reason, when we have coaches like that, Phil Jackson, Scott Skiles, Tom Thibodeau, okay? Go and Google it for yourself. When we have coaches like that, that's when you see the Chicago Bulls winning the most games. If I'm not mistaken, I think I may be mistaken. Maybe I should have looked into this before I made this video. Google it for yourself. I'm going to Google it when I get off of this podcast right here. if I'm not mistaken, I could have sworn the Chicago Bulls won 50 games, if not close to that, with Scott Skiles. And that kind of speaks to my point that I'm trying to make here. I know we won 50 plus games multiple times with Tom Thibodeau. And we also did that with Phil Jackson, obviously, won 6 championships. So an interesting question that I would pose to everybody here, just a little interesting little tidbit to think about. Interesting question to think about here. Okay, when you think about, I want you to think about this presentation here, okay? So just imagine this current roster as is, okay? This current roster as is right now is currently constructed. Okay. Imagine this roster right now, instead of Billy Donovan as head coach, with Thibs as head coach. Kind of see where I'm going here? And again, this is not a knock on Billy Donovan, because I think that he's a great coach. Maybe he's the coach to get through to these players. Maybe he's not. And I'm not blaming it on the players either. I just think that it's just an interesting little tidbit that I have, based on Chicago Bulls history. We seem to always thrive with players that are, with coaches that are similar to like a Scott Skiles type approach, a Tom Thibodeau type approach, Phil Jackson type of approach. Now, here's another interesting tidbit. Okay, because you might say, okay, well, maybe he doesn't know what he's talking about. There's been other successful coaches in the Chicago Bulls history. Okay, you're right, it has. But I will say this: when you look at Vinny Del Negro, decent coach. I feel like he was a good coach. They say he didn't agree with front office, whatever. I don't know what's true about that, but I feel like Vinny Del Negro was a solid coach. You saw what he did with the Clippers when he went over there after the Bulls. Anyway. Okay, you look at Vinny Del Negro. You look at Billy Donovan. Okay? Who else am I forgetting here? Even like a Fred Hoiberg. They seem to be kind of like on that side of, okay, I'm going to communicate well with the players, get to know the players, things like that. And that's fantastic. But you look at how far that gets us. That usually with coaches like that, and again, it's no knock on them. I'm just stating reality here. I'm just stating Chicago Bulls history here, and you can go look it up for yourself. Usually with coaches like that, it seems like we max out at like 41, 42 wins, 43, something like that. That's just my take. I don't think I'm wrong about that. Like I said, you can go look it up on Google, but I think that these numbers that I'm saying to you guys are pretty factual. Okay? Usually with coaches like that, Vinny Del Negro, Fred Hoiberg, Billy Donovan, the Chicago Bulls max out at like 41 wins, 45 tops. I don't know. I don't know if Billy Donovan is the coach for this squad. I don't know. I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that at the end of the day, maybe I'm just overreacting. Maybe it's just a bad patch that the Bulls have found themselves in. Maybe it's just a bad stretch of games. Maybe they can turn it on like they did last year, towards that second half of the season after the All-Star break where they turned it on. Bazelis had a great second half of the season, and the team was winning much more games. Made it to the play-in, but ended up losing to the Miami Heat again. Maybe that's, I don't know. Maybe that's what's going to happen this year. But I'm getting ready to clock back in from my lunch break here. Let me know what you guys think about this episode here of Let's Talk Bulls podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you haven't hit that subscribe button already, make sure you subscribe, okay? I try to be consistent as I can with this podcast. Life happens sometimes, but for the most part, I try to be consistent. I try to make podcast videos on here throughout the week. So thank you guys so very much for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button. Let's help this channel grow. I look forward to, I am at 41 subscribers right now. All right. So I appreciate all of you guys. The subscribers number is going up consistently. I really appreciate every single last one of you guys for subscribing to my YouTube channel here. So feel free to share this video with others. Feel free to comment. I will reply to your comment. Feel free to chime in and all of those good things. Let me see. I'm getting ready to clock back in here. Let me see. All right. Anyway, let me clock back in, you guys, to work. Shout outs to all of my subscribers. I'm trying to toggle between two things here. I'm at work trying to do what I gotta do and make this podcast as well on my lunch break. So see red, you guys. It's not looking too good. It is what it is. You can't win them all. Can't lose them all either. Like I always say, unless you're a terrible team, then you can really lose them all. But thank you guys for tuning in. Let me get back to work here. Peace out. Hit that subscribe button up. Peace out. Have a good night.